Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the KVI studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, did Anthony Fauci completely blow the lab leak investigation? CIA seems to think so, but before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
Yesterday, there was one of these photo op events about transit. So you have Turd Ferguson, Gourmet Zahalai, who works with terrorists, Katie Wilson, the most useless mayor in America, and Dow Constantine, probably one of the most corrupt people ever in Washington State, and the most useless. What a photo op. This is the best Washington has to offer. Turd Ferguson, Gourmet Zahalai, Katie Wilson, and Dow Constantine. And look at them smiling, so happy, standing in front of the buses talking about how we are ready for the World Cup because we have the best transit system and we're going to be great. Really, just stellar. Stellar, phenomenal. Here's what the turd had to say during the presser today.
Look, you don't get to host a World Cup match, series of matches, unless you're a world-class city, full stop. That competition is intense. They don't just hand these things out to anybody. You've got to have an exceptional city, exceptional partners, exceptional team, exceptional infrastructure, exceptional transportation system, all that, and more. I was reading a national article about some other jurisdictions and the challenges they're having trying to get folks to their stadiums. A headline in one article said, high prices in store for fans in some U.S. host cities. Individuals have to pay a lot of money to take a train or a bus to get to stadiums that are not in the central core of their downtown. It's the exact opposite experience here. These shuttles that you see behind us are going to be free on match day. We're in Seattle going the opposite direction, making it accessible and cost-friendly for folks who want to attend this wonderful, wonderful experience.
Oh,
Turd Ferguson.
Exactly. Let's break this down for a moment, shall we? So you're happy that our stadiums are downtown-ish. Okay. You had nothing to do with that. But okay, sure, let's go with that. Did I call it that they have an opportunity to make money on transit and everything's going to be free? And yet they wonder why they never have any money for transit. So according to them, 750,000 people are going to be here for the World Cup. And all the transportation, free. Free. I see. Not like Washington has a massive budget. Oh, we do have a massive budget problem. That's okay. Seattle doesn't have a massive budget. Wait, Seattle has a massive budget problem too. Did he call us a world-class city there? Hang on. What did he say back here? Let's just check that out a second here.
Look, you don't get to host a World Cup match, series of matches, unless you're a world-class city, full stop. That competition is intense. They don't just hand these things out to anybody. You've got to have an exceptional city.
Hang on. I'm sorry. Can we just stop there for a second?
They hand it out to countries all the time.
Uh-huh.
Like, usually there's lots of money involved.
Uh-huh.
And oftentimes they're not great places to go to, but they make it great for like a month.
Yep.
And then when they leave these, I think they're called what are they called? White elephants or white rhinos? Whatever, the dead stadiums that we talked about yesterday.
Just sit there. Just sit there.
FIFA and the Olympics, the last thing they care about is whether or not you are a world-class city, let alone a world-class country.
Right. Where are the
Full
Olympics?
stop.
Where are the Olympics going this year, Kevin? Do you know? Where
I
are they
actually
going?
don't know because I really don't care. But
They're going to Los Angeles. Because Los Angeles, half the city burned down last year. But sure, world-class city. They don't have water in the fire hydrants. World-class city.
Or how about when they went to Russia and they did the Winter Olympics in the like sunniest part of Russia or whatever?
Or how about the time they went to China and you saw all the nuclear stacks behind them? That was great. And then you see in China the atrocities they have going on while the Olympics are. You don't get that.
Nope.
You don't get that World Cup unless you're a world-class city.
Yep.
Wait a second. What did he say was exceptional here? I just want to make sure I got all this here, the exceptional stuff he's talking about.
Exceptional partners, exceptional team, exceptional infrastructure, exceptional transportation system.
Stop. I know we're building it, but would anybody call Sound Transit exceptional transportation? Would anybody call King County Metro exceptional transportation? Would anybody say that? It's exceptional. Oh, exceptional.
Let's see what Transit Joe says.
I'm sure that's him calling right now. I hear him calling in the background. Exceptional.
All that and more.
All that and more. Yeah, we're an exceptional city, all right. You know, I saw a survey yesterday that came out from King County Prosecutor. It was a release talking about how gun violence had gone down. And I said, wow, bad timing, guys. Bad timing. Because you have a bunch of high-profile cases last week and this week. Not a single one of them had anything whatsoever to do with a gun. But gun violence is down, and as we say all the time, it's not the gun that commits the crime. It's the psychopath who's holding it. So, shall we just go through some of the high-profile cases that we have been following around here? We're just going to go from newest to oldest, okay? Newest to oldest. Here we go. This morning, we found out that Seattle police had arrested the suspect in the murder of the University of Washington student. The student, who's a 19-year-old man who identifies as a woman, was found dead with stab wounds in a laundry room at the Nordheim Court Apartments off-campus housing for UW students Sunday night. Now, what happened was the police yesterday, towards the end of our show, released pictures of the suspect. Remember, originally, they wouldn't describe what this dude looked like. They wouldn't say it was a black guy. They wouldn't say that at all. And then eventually it was, okay, now we'll tell you what he looks like. And then it was, well, we can't find him. Here's the pictures. Well, apparently this guy lives out in Redmond, turned himself in because his family urged him to, and he turned himself into the Bellevue Police Department. Bellevue Police turned him over to Seattle. He's now actually having a hearing, which should be wrapping up soon, and we'll have more details on this case. But he's stabbed to death. A University of Washington student in student housing, off-campus student housing, in a laundry room. Now, this guy, as soon as he was arrested, as soon as they announced he was arrested, everybody starts speculating. I got to warn everybody, don't trust anything you see on Reddit. Remember I told you yesterday there's this video floating around Reddit and I wasn't ready to say that's the guy? I am so glad I wasn't ready to say that's the guy and I didn't put it up online. Because apparently there's a whole bunch of lunatics that are wandering around the University of Washington campus that nobody does anything about. And they say, it's this guy, it's this guy, it's that guy. Well, this one was not those guys. Don't believe anything you see on Reddit, ever. So as soon as I saw there was an arrest, I go to the King County jail records, and I say, who's in for homicide? Who's in for murder? Who's in for any of this? And there was one person. His name was Christopher Leahy. And guess what? That was the guy. 31-year-old Christopher Leahy, according to Seattle Police Department, turned himself into Bellevue Police before being transferred to SPD detectives. He was arrested at 10:42 p.m. last night. Now, this dude, according to his family, who told Fox 13, he suffers from crises. Okay. So let's see how bad his crises was. Prosecutors said during the hearing today, and we're just getting this now, that the injuries supported a first-degree murder allegation, saying the victim suffered more than 40 stab wounds. 40 stab wounds. That's what he did to this person. That's what he did. In our world-class institution, in our world-class city, 40 stab wounds. Oh, did they let him out of jail already? I mean, it's 40 stab wounds. Do you let him out of jail because he's black? Or do you say he stays in jail because he killed a trans person? Which one weighs out in your woke Olympics here in Seattle? So the defense argued for a lower bail, saying the suspect voluntarily turned himself in to police. Yes, let's let him go because he voluntarily turned himself in. They set his bail at $10 million during his first court appearance. Okay, that's case number one. Now let's do case number 2. Here we go. You ready for this one? So now, thank God, the 2 men accused of randomly attacking a senior citizen in downtown Seattle last month are both now in King County Jail after the second suspect surrendered to authorities at a court hearing yesterday morning. According to Como News, Ahmed Abdullah Osman, 29, appeared alongside his public defender for an arraignment hearing after a $200,000 warrant was issued for his arrest following the April 19th assault, which was captured on the city's real-time crime center surveillance cameras. Quote, this assault was unprovoked on a 77-year-old man who was walking in public, prosecutor Ryan Turner told a judge at Wednesday's hearing. The state has extreme concerns for the safety of the community if Mr. Osman is released. They said he has been in and out of patient treatment for months. Upon learning of his warrant, he immediately screened a public defender, and he is standing before you. Oh, bravo. Been in and out of treatment, but he turned himself in after beating the hell out of a 77-year-old man. Well done. Well done. They're both still sitting in jail. One on $200,000 bail, one on $100,000 bail. Now, why did this case get so much attention? Because these are the very cameras that captured these guys are the very ones that Seattle Socialist Mayor Katie Wilson wants to turn off those cameras. She had literally said the week before this that we need to turn off those cameras in advance of the World Cup. Yep, world-class city. We are a world-class city. We're going to have third world security for the Olympics, but world-class city, or for a World Cup, whatever stupid thing it is. We're a world-class city. World-class city. What else we got here? Okay, none of these involve a gun, remember. According to Como News, a 34-year-old man remains in critical condition after what Seattle police describe as an unprovoked attack in downtown Seattle that left him with severe head and facial injuries. Investigators say, once again, surveillance video captured the suspect walking past the victim before repeatedly striking him in the head with an object, possibly a hammer, more than a dozen times near 6th Avenue and Madison Street, near the Renaissance Hotel. Hey, Kevin, correct me because my geography of downtown Seattle ain't that great. That's where all the hotels are, aren't they? Over there. And that's the area they want to make sure is safe for the World Cup, right? The area between the stadiums and the hotels and all that. His family released a picture of him. It's horrific. It is absolutely horrific what this kid looks like. Apparently today he opened his eyes and regained some consciousness. It's going to be a long recovery. 12 times getting hit in the head with a hammer. He's been on a ventilator in the intensive care unit at Harborview Medical Center since the attack. From some random individual, but we're a world-class city. World-class city, everybody. We are a world-class city. Oh, wait, got another one here. So this one shows our world-class Justice Department, by the way. The 15-year-old girl who was sexually assaulted, who was raped after being lured from a bus stop in Seattle's Northgate neighborhood, according to her family, is forever scarred, according to an emotional statement from her family that was read in court on Wednesday. The suspect, identified as Joshua Kowalski, pleaded not guilty to charges of rape and kidnapping during his first court appearance. And then this is my favorite part here. A judge also ordered media outlets not to show the suspect's face in court because of potential identification issues that could come up during the trial. Oh, you mean the jury finding out what a monster this guy is? That he had 46 warrants out for his arrest? So there's one image that's out there. There's one of him walking down the street shortly before the police found him crapping on a sidewalk and trying to light his clothes on fire because he's been arrested 46 times and he's an insane person. But we let insane people wander around our world-class city and allegedly rape 15-year-old girls in our world-class city we have here. Yes, it's a world-class city. None of those crimes were committed with a gun. Most of them were committed by crazy people that we just let wander the streets in our world-class city. Do you think that Seattle is a world-class city? Give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I'll tell you this. You know what I saw the other day? Kevin, I don't know which way you drive home, but I was driving home. I was going up to Denny, and they started painting the lines for the bus lane already. And already there are problems. And already I noticed something else on the bus lanes. It says cyclists or bus. Not HOV or bus, which might make a little bit more sense, maybe. But no, cyclist or bus. You know what I did? I went in those lanes yesterday because there's no cameras up yet. So I'm going to keep driving in the lanes that my tax dollars paid for. But already there were traffic problems yesterday. Thank you, Katie Wilson, for our world-class city. Oh, wait, the past couple days, as I've been driving past Como Plaza, do you know what they're adding to our world-class city? Rainbow-colored bike lane barriers. They're beautiful. Beautiful. Because there's tons of cyclists in the middle of downtown going over there. What are they doing? And they took out a lane of traffic for that. Took out another lane of traffic for that in our world-class city. By the way, you want to say you like the light rail or whatever? You just got the monorail over there, and that thing stops running at what, 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night or something in our world-class city? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go to the KVI studio line, take a call from Ian in Tacoma. Ian, do you think that Seattle is a world-class city?
I have lots of views on that, but the reason I called is I grew up in D.C., and I went to the 4th of July there for years. And same thing, transit was free on those kinds of holidays and whatnot. Much better developed transit system. Seattle is going to die.
Well,
I hope that you can schedule a call with Transit Joe for a few days after the World Cup, because I can't wait to hear his take on this, and the headlines are going to be great.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know how I'm going to get to the studio during this time. 750,000 people coming here, and now my commute has been divided up by bus lanes and God knows what else is going on here. It's going to be an adventure getting in. Here's what I'm going to do the first day. The first day of this World Cup insanity, I'm going to leave my house an hour earlier than I normally do and see how bad this is actually going to be. Or will they totally have it? But here's what I'm more concerned about. Here's what I think is going to happen, Ian. And I'm curious how many of you agree with me. I think that core will be like Fort Knox. I really do. I think your problems are going to be out in the suburbs. And I think because so many people are covering the World Cup, so many newsrooms are covering that, and there's so few people working in these newsrooms, I think they're not going to cover all the crime, whether intentionally or because they don't have the staff. That's what I think is going to happen, because that's what happened during the All-Star game. That's what happened during Taylor Swift. That's what happened during all these other events. What do you think, Ian?
Oh, I think you're 100% right. And I think an hour is not going to be enough for you that first day.
Yeah.
Give yourself an hour and a half.
I think that's exactly what's going to happen. We'll see. I mean, I always get in early for my show because I do a lot of prep for my show. But, yeah, we're going to see how it is. We might do it from the car. Who knows? I'll call into my own show. Ian, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Leonard in Shoreline. Leonard, what's up, man?
Hey, nothing much. I have a question for you, and I don't think anybody has asked it yet. Okay, well, since Katie Wilson, the so-called socialist who wants to basically destroy Seattle, I wonder why she wants to turn off these RTCC cameras in the first place. Is it so that she can let the homeless and she can let these crazy people and people in crises go out and beat the hell out of people and nobody wants to call the police for it?
Yeah, well, I think it's that, but I think more what it is she doesn't want people getting arrested. And then the other thing is that usually events like this have a high uptick in sex trafficking, and Katie Wilson's one of these people who thinks sex workers are real workers, so we shouldn't expose them, even though that's human trafficking. So I think that's what's going on. Leonard, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the KVI studio line. Take call from Joe in Seward Park. Joe, what's going on?
Ari, how you doing? Good
What's up, man? How are you?
I'm good. Just wanted to mention, you kind of said it as a side point, but I think it's a pretty accurate analysis of the hypocrisy. that every time a gun violent attack occurs, they just want to make more and more regulations. But when it comes to a homeless or an insane, mentally disturbed person, they don't make any more regulations on mental disabilities.
You know what I think it is? I think it's the Cutco lobby. I think they don't want them banning Cutco knives. I think they don't want them going after the knives. That's what it is for the vicious stabbings. Cutco lobby, very, very powerful at the.
It's a big constituency, yes.
That's what it is. I mean, think about it. Not a single one of these. Oh, we should go after the Hammer lobby, right? MC Hammer. Be very mad about that. Not a single one of these crimes was done with a gun, and yet every time, you're 100% right, Joe. Every time, what is it? Ban the guns, restrict the guns, restrict the guns. I don't hear them talking about restricting homeless encampments. I don't hear them talking about dealing with mental crisis. I don't hear them talking about any of that. Instead, all they're talking about is we have the safest city. I guess if you tell a lie loud enough, long enough, big enough, people will believe it, right?
Absolutely. That's kind of their backbone.
It really is. Joe, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Up next, my friends, with all the hammer time around here and other beatings, is it a wonder that so many businesses are leaving? Yet why does a study say people are moving to Seattle? We'll explain when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. You guys are funny today on the text line. This one here from the other Mike in Everett. Hey, Ari, Seattle is a world-class city. Just not the definition they think it is. More like a third world-class city, LOL. This one down here, John in Lakewood, he calls it a turd-class city. Very good. I like that one a lot. Very, very, very good. This one here, Kevin, more work for you. Larry says I should get my boss to drive me to work, and then we'll both be late. What makes the sense of that? He lives in North Seattle. I live in South Seattle. That's a bad idea, Larry. I do like the effort. I do like that, but I don't think that's gonna work out too well. This one here, Robin Lakewood says, for the World Cup, you know how I should get to work? I should put INS and Border Patrol signage on my charger. Isn't that a crime? I'm pretty sure that's super illegal. I got some friends with the feds. Maybe they can lend me a few things. Let's do that. Yeah, I think that'll work out. This one here, Forest Cat wants machete equity for the unhoused. Oh, God, you guys are terrible today. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Okay, there is this report that's going around that every media outlet picked up, and I don't believe it. I got this email too, and I don't know which survey company did this, but they're saying Seattle ranks 5th in population growth as large U.S. cities see slow gains, some declines. Is there anything around here to indicate that we are 5th in the U.S. for population growth? I was driving home on 5th Avenue last night. I got stopped at a red light I don't normally get stopped at. It was a couple blocks before the 5th Avenue Theater. And I saw that the entire block, which used to be retail, is all boarded up. All of it. And then I looked to the other side of the street, and I saw more empty shops. Downtown is a ghost town for retail. I know there's still people down there, but I'm not really sure where they're going because so many things are empty. So what are they talking about saying we're growing and we're number 5? Where are they pulling this from? They say it's from the U.S. Census Bureau, and I'm just not seeing it. I don't know what they're talking about. They said only Charlotte, North Carolina, Fort Worth, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, and Salina, Texas added more residents during the year. Not Miami, not Hollywood, Florida, not Boca Raton, but us? I have questions with these. I really, really do have questions with these, especially with this new study that came out. Our friends over at Future 42 had a copy of the Seattle Chamber of Commerce poll of Seattle voters, which is out. And the quality of life index is headed back down to 2023 levels, which is nuts when you consider the highest non-COVID point in this decade was late last year. A majority, 52% of voters now believe things in Seattle area are on the wrong track, with a massive 75% worried about the future of downtown. And the regional optimism index dropped 10% from September of 2025. 73% of voters say big businesses are important to Seattle's success. 58% don't trust the city to spend their tax dollars wisely. 58% say taxes are too high versus services received. 54% say city regulations and taxes are one of the primary causes of Seattle's high cost of living. 71% say crime, drugs, and homelessness are the biggest frustration, with concerns over public safety on their way back to 2023 levels, which was Seattle's most violent year ever on record when we had the most homicides. Oh, don't worry, guys. It won't be guns this time. It'll be hammers and knives. Only 42% say Seattle should increase taxes to pay for the budget deficit, and over half of the Seattleites, over half, say they have considered moving, with 46% still considering leaving the city. That's the Seattle Chamber of Commerce. Need I remind everybody who's running the Chamber of Commerce these days? Joe Nguyen, former state senator Joe Nguyen, the guy who helped pass the gas tax, the Climate Commitment Act, on all of us. He's running this thing now. So don't say, oh, they're just shills for big business and they're just a whole bunch of right-wing Republicans. Joe Nguyen, definitely not right-wing in any way, shape, or form. Definitely not. But this is what the Seattle Chamber of Commerce survey says, that people do not have an optimistic look ahead of Seattle, Washington. Doesn't matter how many World Cups happen. So what happened? The matches are in June and July, right? That's when all the matches are, I think. I think that's the schedule. I have to really look at it so I know about traffic and such. So let's say they're in June and July. And then what? Then summer's over and then it's just let the homeless go back to the streets? Is that really what it is? Then we're left with whatever it is? I know they're cleaning up the homeless right now. You think that's going to continue? No. Then Katie Wilson can do her socialist utopia. Can't wait to see what it looks like. I'm sure it'll be very, very special. Who helped cause this mess down here? It wasn't all locally done. A lot of it had to do with the feds, especially Anthony Fauci during COVID. Up next, a congressional hearing yesterday really slammed Fauci and exposed some stuff we all assumed was true, but now we know it is. We'll give you all the details with the insane audio when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Man, it was like 2021 yesterday up on Capitol Hill. The entire discussion was about the Rona. Felt like I had gone back in time watching these because CIA whistleblower James Erdman III testified that the Biden administration buried analysis concluding a lab leak was the most likely origin of the COVID-19 pandemic in a hearing on Wednesday. Do you remember the bat nonsense? Yeah, somebody ate a bat in a wet market, and so we all got COVID. That's it. Yeah, that's how we all got COVID, because somebody ate a bat. That's what caused COVID, right? No, actually, it seems like it was the lab, which was the Wuhan coronavirus. Gee, where did the coronavirus come from? Oh, maybe the Wuhan coronavirus lab, right? Right? Maybe. Just a hunch. The insanity. The absolute insanity. Here's what James Erdman said.
Public health policy would have been very different had the American public been made aware that a virus from a lab in China was going to serve as the foundation for an emergency use authorization mRNA products being mandated by the former administration. Dr. Fauci's role in the cover-up was intentional. Dr. Fauci influenced the analytical process and findings by leveraging his position to ensure the IC consulted with a conflicted list of curated subject matter experts, public health officials, and scientists. This included some of the authors of the paper, The Proximal Origin of SARS-CoV-2, and other public health experts who have been in his orbit for the last 20-plus years.
Can we do an alternate timeline for a second here? Can we do an alternate timeline when everybody was honest about COVID? So COVID breaks out and Trump's still president. Trump goes, it's China, China virus, China caused it. And immediately everybody goes, that's racist, that's wrong, that's terrible. It was a bat. It was a bat. Can you imagine if we had actually mobilized the country to fight China, to fight the virus and say, yes, this was done to us? It would have been, how do we prosecute them? How do we sanction them? How do we get the money? How do we stop this of China, which was on the rise at the time? Can you imagine how the response might have been different if we actually looked at that? And then if you know the thing comes from a lab, I think people would have been more likely to actually listen to public health because they would have said, the bat, really? The bat. You're telling me it's the bat. I think people would have said, China, virus, dangerous. Maybe I should follow some of this stuff. But no, you weren't allowed to say it. You got censored for saying that kind of stuff.
Being an advocate for the devil, like I usually am.
Yes.
There was, if you remember correctly, quite a lot of things happening to the old Asian people, being pushed into trains and beaten here and beaten there. And I think that they were probably saying, you know, if we go with this, that you think it's bad now, wait till we say that, oh yeah, it got escaped from a lab.
So go the other way for a second here. Okay, let's just go the other way. How much anti-Islam violence was there after 9/11? We kept hearing about it. We kept hearing that it was going to be a thing. How much was there actually?
I mean, I don't recall.
There wasn't a lot.
I don't recall. I was.
There really wasn't a lot.
But
there weren't.
But I can tell you there was plenty of videos online and everywhere. Something that wasn't a thing back when that happened.
Well, here's the thing
that
here's
was
where I'm
happening.
pushing back on you.
down in our Asia, China, in our Chinatown.
I ain't disagreeing with you, but here's the thing: there was always violence in Chinatown since they started putting in the homeless shelters and such.
Sure.
So I'm not sure there's necessarily a correlation between those two. I think people just said, "Yeah, there's Asian violence. Oh, now it's because of COVID." I don't recall them saying it was because of COVID.
No, but I do recall them saying we don't want to go with this kind of rumored thing that we don't really know for sure is what caused it because we don't want people to go
fair point
on people like that. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong or that, you know, what they did saved so much more of this ongoing sort
I
of
don't
hate.
think it did. But I think the problem is here. If you're not honest with people, they don't believe you. So let's talk about the junta virus that's going on right now. Oh my God, we're all going to die. Now they're actually saying, no, guys, unless you eat the rat poop or it was in your food by accident or you're sharing close quarters with somebody who had the rat poop, then guess what? You're going to be fine. So if you weren't one of those people, you'll be fine. You saw that story the other day? Oh my God, junta virus. People are in King County with the junta virus. And I said, shut up. We don't believe him unless you are gushing blood out the eyeballs now. Nobody who went through the COVID stuff is going to believe you.
Well, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Like I think you're right there.
Because they lied to all of us of the bat or whatever else it was, nobody believes them anymore. Nobody does. And actually, this is the kind of stuff Senator Moody was saying.
And then you had Dr. Fauci, who came out and contradicted himself constantly. At one point, he even admitted later, he told people shouldn't be walking around with masks on. And later he said that was because we were trying to control the supply for healthcare professionals. It wasn't based on any science. But then later he told everyone to wear masks repeatedly. The 6-foot rule seemed to have been just crafted out of thin air with no basis in science whatsoever. In fact, he said that rule sort of just appeared when he testified. and that guidance on the shutdown of schools and small businesses was arbitrary and not based on any science. So I just want to make sure the American people hear that. You had a government who's supposed to be limited and stay out of people's lives, coming in and offering guidance. Many times it was done under mandates to close businesses, people's livelihoods, to keep children from being educated, to keep people from expressing their faith and gathering to show freedom of religion and their faith and expression. I mean, unbelievable what happened during the COVID years.
I remember a meme from that time. It said, "We believe in the Constitution. We hold by the Constitution unless there's the flu." Then this whole thing goes out the window. It's the next amendment that we've added. Yeah, if the flu comes along, goes out the window, right? Here's Senator Moreno tearing into Fauci.
But where's the accountability? This is what I hear from my constituents all over Ohio. Is like, great, you got a hearing, you said this and that happened, but they want to see the perp walks. Where are the people who made these decisions, and how do we hold them accountable? Anthony Fauci is sitting, probably sipping margaritas somewhere with his multi-million-dollar financial success as a result of duping the American people into putting an experimental virus and a vaccine into their bodies, or risk losing their jobs. He's not accountable to anybody. He's having a great life. He was featured on Vogue magazine. He sat there for a cover shot for a day, trying to get beauty shots of him, which I imagine the photographer found difficult. Where do you think that we are on a path to accountability?
Well, here's what you gotta do. You gotta defraud the entire American public. And after you do that, you retire really, really quick before they can prosecute you. And you get the president to sign you a pardon. And then you can't get prosecuted because you're protected. Insane. Matt with text of the day. "Hey, boss, it's the bat." Random Gotham gangster. Yes, exactly right. Exactly right. Up next, my friends, your calls, your texts. Plus, also, why did some lady lose her membership to Planet Fitness? We missed that story yesterday, but we'll have it for you today. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, we are running a contest right now for you to possibly win four tickets to the Bremerton Air Show July 11th and 12th. You can only enter at kvi.com. We will be out there on the 12th. You can come see us. You can come say hi to me and Mr. KVI. We will be out there to see you. We go to the Warrior Injury studio line. Take a call from Grumpy Old Man in Sumner. Grumpy Old Man, what's going on?
Not much, but you're right. Seattle is a world-class city. I'm just not sure who's running it. Katie, Trudeau, Hella, Kylie. One of those four has got to be running it.
So, Grumpy Old Man, I will tell you this, is that most of the texts I got in the last segment said this. This is great. Ready? I'm just going to go through them with you, okay? Jeff and Kent said, we have the fifth population growth due to the influx of out-of-town homeless and illegals. The 253 said, hello, Ari. Seattle's probably fifth in growth for real. They're just counting the homeless and illegal influx, so it makes sense. Mike Curb says it's growing thanks to the influx of homeless. 253, they are counting the increase of homeless in the population growth. Mark, it's the homeless population growth. Rob, it's the homeless population growth. I think we have a one-track mind here, Grumpy. What do you think?
I agree with all of it. I think that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're just counting the homeless and the illegals.
Wait, what do you think about this? Rick says this: world-class lunatics, world-class drug addicts, world-class criminals, and so on. What do you think?
That sounds about right.
Grumpy, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show, man.
One more thing, Ari.
Yeah.
That RLE?
Yeah.
RLE works really good. I had it about 2.5 years ago with K2 Vision.
Ah, that's good to know. So they actually told me, I went in for the whole physical and everything, and they said to me, Ari, you're lucky. You got like 3 or 4 more years, then you got to come see us. And actually, that's one of the reasons I have them advertise on the show, because they were honest with me. We want to make sure they're honest with you guys, too, and they were honest with me. So we love those guys. They're great about that.
My pre-op consult was with Dr. Kopstein.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him I wanted both eyes done at the same time.
Hang
I
on.
wasn't backing down.
Grumpy, before I get accused of funny business with the FCC, did I pay you at all for this? Did they pay you at all for this?
No, this is completely... it's 2.5 years ago that I had it done.
It sounds too much like the commercial, man. We're going to have people be skeptical with us. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the KVI studio line. Take a call from Ron in Tacoma. Ron, what's up, man?
Yeah, first of all, Seattle's not a world-class city. It's a world disease city. Maybe people should be asking questions of how some of the biggest diseases in the world seem to come through Seattle. Just a thought. The reason I'm calling is because of Ilhan Omar. I just got done watching how they basically got enough goods on her to bring her in. Apparently, they're talking about indicting her. Now I hear that because the Democrats voted that they can't subpoena her. What?
Okay.
I don't even understand.
Hang on a second. Ron, I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
I haven't seen this yet, okay? I've been dealing with the world-class city stuff all day. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're inaccurate, but let me get my head wrapped around it. Let me go watch some hearings if this happened today, and then I'll get back with you on this, okay?
That would be great. And then Hakeem Jeffries just got off AP saying that basically they're going to start taking over all over the lower courts. I just don't understand how they get away with saying this, much less if they can even do this.
Well, there's a lot of saber rattling. That's number one. Okay, a lot of sabering where you say you're going to do this. I mean, look, how many times does the GOP in Washington say we're going to take back Washington, right? You can say whatever you want. You have freedom of speech. It doesn't mean it's necessarily going to happen, but let's be real. During the Biden administration, look what's happening here in Washington. You have Turd Ferguson appointing all his lawyer buddies to fill any open position that's there. They're literally doing it. We all know it. These are all friends of his. He's appointing them to the Supreme Court. And that's why the elections this year are so important about the Washington State Supreme Court, because Ferguson puts his buddies in there to fill empty spots. Then they get to run as incumbents, and then you have a harder time beating them. Ron, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We'll go back to the KVI studio line. Take a call from Paul in Tacoma. Paul, what's up?
Hey, Ari. a couple weeks ago, I don't know if you remember, I came up and gave you kind of a funny spiel, but then you popped up and said, how would you name Seattle? And I said Trump City. But then after I hung up, I thought, well, Trump doesn't really have anything to do with city. What is this city so famous for? Well, it pumps raw sewage into the sound, and it encourages all the citizens and local wildlife to poop in the streets. So I think we should name it Turd City or Poop City.
Oh, that reminds me.
For their poop.
That reminds me. The vendor who makes the poop emoji with the glasses on him got back to me. I'm running it up the flagpole to see if we can actually get those KVI branded. I think the internal debate's going to be, do we slap KVI on a turd? And I'm not sure if they like that or not. But I will say, I love those emojis. They crack me up. The ones with the glasses on them that look like Bob Ferguson, oh, they're great. Absolutely great. Would you put one on your car, Paul?
Oh, definitely. But I would like you to see you run a contest to see if we can rename Seattle to a proper name.
Well, here's the thing. I'll tell you this, Paul. I think we need to rename Seattle for a different reason. It's named after Chief Sealth, and he was a slave owner. And I think that's racist.
That's the one I brought up. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. I remember. I think it's racist. So I think we should just get rid of it. And we just do the Poop City or whatever else it is. Because why not, right?
Well, also, our politicians represent poop. I mean, they're a bunch of expletive.
Well, I would say instead, I think they're full of the thing we're talking about. But I got to tell you something, Paul. This conversation is going right down the drain. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Was that last segment too much bathroom humor? See what the dad jokes are kicking in today. Speaking of bathrooms, by the way, a New Hampshire woman has had her Planet Fitness membership canceled after she reported a man in the locker room, not a man on the wing, a man in the locker room. Judy Walcott, a longtime member of Planet Fitness in Concord, New Hampshire, told Fox News Digital she felt unsafe after encountering someone she believed was male in the women's locker room near the shower area on April 11th. Walcott said she reported the incident to a young employee at the front desk who told her there was nothing staff could do because it was company policy. She claims the employee did not check the locker room while she was present. She said she raised the issue again 4 days later with another staff member because she had safety concerns, but she said the employee called her transphobic instead of looking into the claims. This is not new. We've seen this with Planet Fitness before, but I'll say this also. I'm not defending this. I think it's wrong. I think it's awful. I think that's why we should have the initiative pass to keep boys out of girls' sports, you name it. Have you seen the employees at the Planet Fitness for a second here? Okay. When I used to go to the Planet Fitness, which I'm still paying the fees for, and I really should use my membership for $10 a month, when you go there, those people are probably the worst employees I've ever seen in my life. They look so uninterested in everything. And then there's one guy who looks like he hates his life, whose job is to spray down all the equipment. I think your bigger issue is with the company policy of Planet Fitness. And sometimes they're regulated by state law, like all the venues around here that have to have the multi-use bathrooms or the unisex bathrooms. The places don't want to do that. The government's making them do that. That's the bigger problem. Up next, a whole lot more to discuss, including Washington is moving to punish superintendents for protecting parental rights. Give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the KVI studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour are the feds finally coming after Washington because of their illegal alien policies. Might have some good news for you on that front. But before we get to any of this, this is not unexpected, but this is something that's so par for the course. I don't want to say it's shocking because we live in Washington and nothing really shocks me anymore, but Washington school superintendents who defy state mandates on parental notification and gender identity policies could soon face professional discipline, including loss of certification, under rule changes being considered this week by the Professional Educator Standards Board. That's right. They're talking about this. You remember how Chris Rakedall, when the initiatives went into place originally, before you had the legislature gut them before that, what did they do? Oh, no. We're not imposing any of those. We're not doing anything. Look at the gusto he's going after the stuff with now. Creepy Chris Rakedall. The proposed changes stem from HB 1296, the Democrat-backed law passed last year under the banner of creating a safe and supportive education system, gutting the Parental Bill of Rights approved the previous year, which all of you gathered signatures for. So, Washington Policy Center Education Director Vicki Murray wrote, "The board is rewriting the rules and your child's superintendent could lose their career for keeping you informed." PESB is weighing changes, to the Washington Administrative Code that would classify a superintendent's willful refusal to comply with HB 1296 as an act of unprofessional conduct, placing their professional credentials at risk. Several Washington districts, including La Center, Meade, Moses Lake, Eastmont, and Kennewick, have passed resolutions or otherwise indicating they will not comply with the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction directives on parental notification and student pronoun policies. Do you understand what's happening here? You know how they passed that law to get rid of sheriffs they don't like? Thank God a court held that up. Well, now you've got superintendents who say, of course I'm going to tell parents what's going on with their kids. Of course I'm not going to let boys be in girls' locker rooms. Of course we're going to be on the side of common sense and 80% of the American public, not the 20% who's crazy. In fact, I think we had the superintendent of La Center on the show not too long ago to talk about all this. And now they're going to be punished for it? Now they're going to try and remove them? Are they going to threaten them with funding like they did during COVID? OSPI spokesperson Katie Payne told the Center Square that no district leader has yet been found in violation. The complaint process has not yet been established, so no district leader has been found to have been woefully non-compliant. OSPI has been working in partnership with PESB on their required rulemaking. The rulemaking comes as voters are expected to weigh in on two related initiatives in November. IL 26001 would restore the Parental Bill of Rights, as originally enacted through initiatives to the legislature 2081, including parents' rights to review instructional materials, access student records, receive notifications, and opt students out of certain activities. A second initiative, IL 26638, would bar students defined as biologically male from competing in female-only interschool athletic activities, which reminds me, by the way, if you want to sign the initiatives that are going to be out this weekend to roll back the income tax, I put up the details on my social media account. I'll put them up again after the show. I'll be out this Sunday in Bellevue with Brandy Cruz collecting signatures to repeal the income tax. We already got the other two ready to go. Now we're going after these. So Murray said, excuse me, this is why we passed the Parental Bill of Rights to begin with. According to Murray, the proposed rules could target superintendents for notifying parents when a child socially transitions at school, following a school board policy that prioritizes parental notification over OSPI gender identity guidance, or declining to implement OSPI-approved curriculum opposed by parents. So basically, what this is you better follow our rules or else. Follow our rules or else, which is crazy, by the way. Hey, I love when the Democrats say, oh, we want parental control. We want local control. No, we want state control. That's what this is all over again. We don't like what you're doing. We don't want you to have autonomy. We don't want you to have independence. By the way, why do you need a state superintendent? Why do you need Chris Rakedall Let the school districts do what they want. We're doing just fine without a Department of Education in D.C. Why do we need the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction? So now they're voting on this tomorrow, which means they could get a ton of emails from you guys. They could get a ton of information from you guys to tell them not to do this. If you guys do this, you say you're going to vote out Chris Reykdal. So let me tell you, if you want to weigh in, how you can do this. You can submit written comments to PESB at k12.wa.us. That's PESB at k12.wa.us. You can do this. Now, eventually, we're going to get the rulings we want most likely out of the Supreme Court. HB 1296 now faces challenges in court and at the ballot box. In March of 2026, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 6-3 in Mirabelli versus Bonta to reinstate a permanent injunction blocking California's school gender identity non-disclosure policy, which, like Washington's OSPI guidance, required schools' staff to withhold a student's gender identity from parents without the student's consent. The court found that such policies likely violate the First and 14th Amendments, concluding they fail strict scrutiny because they cut parents out of decisions about their own children's welfare. The case now returns to the Ninth Circuit with the injunction in place. Washington State Superintendent Chris Reykdal has publicly pledged to follow court rulings on the issue, saying in January that if current state law is changed by a federal court, then we'll uphold the law. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What does that mean? State law? Federal law? Which one? Creepy Chris Reykdal's a slippery you-know-what. In October of 2025, a coalition of Washington parents, school board members, and educators filed suit in Thurston County Superior Court seeking to overturn HB 1296. The complaint alleges the law violates constitutional protections for parental authority and religious exercise, as well as Washington's single subject rule for legislation. Let's Go Washington has gathered more than 400,000 signatures to place the initiative on the 2026 ballot that would restore Parental Bill of Rights, which they repealed. House and Senate Democrat leaders refused to even hold hearings on the measure, while Republican minority members held unofficial legislative listening sessions that drew statewide and national media attention. PESB's final consideration of this rule is going to be 1:45 tomorrow. So remember, if you want to say you don't want them messing with your school district, you don't want them messing with your superintendent, you can write your comments to PESB at k12.wa.us. That's PESB at k12.wa.us. Meanwhile, you remember a couple weeks ago, we told you that Turd Ferguson released his daycare list. He had this whole list of daycares, and he was talking about how many grants he gave out to all these daycares, and he was all excited about it. And then when you look closer and closer at the list, you said, wait a minute, Turd, why are some of these, like, blanked out? Why are some of these not actually listed? Why do some of these not have names next to them? Why is there information missing? Daycares, information missing. It's not like that's been a problem anywhere in the U.S. or here in Washington, right? Hasn't been an issue at all, right? Well, we pushed back. The Center Square pushed back. A lot of you pushed back. And just the other day, they finally released the full list with all the names, so now we can check them out. And I have a few KVI listeners who actually stepped up and said they're going to be checking out the names. Now, what's interesting here is I asked for the list. The Center Square asked for the list. I don't know how many other people asked for the list, but apparently it must have been a lot of you because they finally caved and released it. Now, I've been trying to reconcile these side by side, and they don't look like the same list. So now I'm kind of curious what they revised in this list, but we'll take what we can get for now. According to the Center Square, after facing mounting pressure over transparency concerns, the Washington Department of Commerce has finally released the names and locations of daycare providers receiving millions in taxpayer-funded grants through the state's Early Learning Facilities Program. The reversal comes just days after criticism erupted on the state's decision to conceal the identities of many great recipients while distributing nearly $57.8 million in public funds. Governor Bob Ferguson announced last month that more than 70 providers would receive grants to expand or improve child care facilities, creating an estimated 2,056 new child care spaces in Evergreen State. When the state initially published the recipient list, more than 20 providers were listed as family home facility, with only the city identified and no provider or business names disclosed. Now, immediately, we saw this was missing because state audits have found over $1.3 billion in DCYF child care spending from 2021 to 2024 was unauditable due to missing records. A 2025 audit identified 37 million in questionable payments, and auditors said it was impossible to trace payments to providers for 4 years. The Center Square and us reached out to the Department of Commerce for an explanation. Now, according to the Center Square, Commerce initially defended withholding the information by citing guidance connected to a state law intended to protect vulnerable individuals from identity theft. What? What are you talking? That's for seniors. We're talking about daycares. Daycares. What are you talking about? The Commerce spokesperson, Amelia Lamb, told the Center Square Commerce relies on the state attorney general's office for interpretation of such laws. I see what it is. Nick Brown's been messing around again, because what probably happened was Commerce went to Nick Brown and said, you guys hid the list, and now we're getting Ari Hoffman, Carlene Johnson, and everybody else bothering us for it. Can you fix this, please? Can you fix this? They suggested that we file a public records request to obtain the information. Funny, I filed the public records request. You know what they sent back to me? The original list with the anonymous names. And I said, this is not what I asked for. I asked for the complete list. Questions were then asked by the Center Square how a law designed to protect seniors and personal data could justify concealing the identities of businesses receiving taxpayer subsidies. Lamb later told the Center Square that the agency had received new guidance from the Attorney General's office, leading officials to release the full list of provider names and locations. They gave us the list on Tuesday, and they updated Ferguson's original press release, but like I said, it don't look like the same list, so I'm wondering what else they changed. Let's not forget, we've been all year talking about, since January, we've been talking about the ghost daycare since Nick Shirley released his video in December. And we have Washington Attorney General's office found that fraud is common in programs like childcare. So you're admitting there's fraud, but you're not actually going to do anything about it? Following Nick Shirley's video exposing fraud in Minnesota daycare, Senator Lisa Wellman, Democrat of Mercer Island, backed efforts to limit public release of childcare provider data, citing safety and privacy concerns, but the bill eventually died in committee after public backlash. So you know what happened here? Let me take you guys back. Do you remember in 2015, 2016, the Seattle City Council had this brilliant idea that they want to take all the parks and turn them into homeless shelters? They said, we're just going to let the homeless people camp in the parks. Do you remember that big fight back then? Huge backlash to then City Council member Mike O'Brien, whose dumb idea this was. But then during COVID, they just said, screw it. We're going to do it now anyway without asking anybody. Look at our parks now. Look what they've done to our parks. So this seems like a similar situation where what happens is they said, well, you know what? We wanted to do this. We wanted to hide the information. Maybe if we release it, they just won't notice. Not only did we notice it, not only did the Center Square notice it, tons of you noticed it. In addition to that, national outlets like National Review, Fox News, a whole bunch of others noticed this because we noticed it. Attorney General Nick Brown previously dismissed fraud allegations as baseless, criticizing independent journalists like myself who are investigating the daycare providers. He called us all a bunch of racists. Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson similarly refused to support investigations into alleged fraud and labeled independent reporters extremist influencers. I should add that to my bio. Extremist influencers, right? I think that's great. That's excellent. Meanwhile, got a story for you in the last bit of the segment here you're not going to get anywhere else.
Talk Radio 570 KVI, an Ari Hoffman Show exclusive.
A Seattle school, in fact, the Seattle Schools District, is now facing yet another lawsuit of discrimination. A former Seattle area high school student has filed a lawsuit against Seattle Public Schools, alleging that administrators failed to protect her from what the complaint describes as pervasive culture of anti-Semitic harassment and intimidation following the October 7th Hamas terror attacks in Israel. The lawsuit is at least the second legal action filed over alleged anti-Semitism at Nathan Hale High School in recent years. You remember the last one that was filed? It was the one where the girl was trapped in her classroom because there was an actual lynch mob outside calling for her. Parents had to come save her from the school. Had to pull her out from the school. Principal did nothing about it and then somehow managed to win Teacher of the Year award from Washington. The latest lawsuit filed in King County Superior Court by former Nathan Hale High School student Alexandra Greenstein accuses Seattle Public Schools of religious discrimination, negligence, and outrage stemming from repeated incidents of alleged anti-Semitic bullying during the 2023, 2024, and 2024-2025 school years. According to the complaint that we got a copy of, Greenstein says the atmosphere at Nathan Hale High School became increasingly hostile towards Jewish and Israeli students after the Hamas October 7th, 2023 massacre in Israel. The suit alleges that anti-Semitic harassment at the school included racial slurs, online intimidation, swastika graffiti, and repeated verbal attacks directed at Greenstein because of her Jewish identity. One of the incidents, specifically described in the complaint, involved Greenstein allegedly being called a baby killer and Islamophobic by fellow students. Wow, how progressive, how tolerant. The lawsuit alleges that she was publicly accused in senior English class, of ethnic cleansing and genocide because she is Jewish. The complaint claims that anti-Semitic and anti-Israel rhetoric became commonplace throughout the school, alleging that swastikas were scrawled on walls and left uncovered by administrators. She alleges that she became so fearful of revealing her background that she stopped telling classmates she had lived most of her life in Israel, instead saying she was from California, where she was born. The suit further alleges that Nathan Hale High School promoted Middle Eastern and Arab culture through school-sponsored events and support for the Free Palestine movement while excluding Jewish and Israeli representation. According to the complaint, anti-Israel posters, flyers, and stickers were distributed with the approval of school administrators and even handed out by Seattle Public School employees. She says she repeatedly reported the harassment to teachers and school administrators, but alleges that her complaints were dismissed, denied, or minimized. The complaint also describes the alleged incident involving another Jewish student, Nathan Hale, who was assaulted by anti-Semitic bullies. That's the one we mentioned before. Despite that incident, the lawsuit claims Seattle Public Schools took no steps to protect Jewish students from foreseeable harm. She alleges that she sought help from a school social work intern named Lindsay Johnson. Johnson acknowledged, according to the suit, that anti-Semitism in the school is pervasive. However, the lawsuit claims no meaningful action was taken afterward. So I looked up this person, Lindsay Johnson, who appears to be a grad student from the University of Washington, and part of the description of the fieldwork for her internship is that she participates in diverse culture and ethnic populations, social justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion. According to the website, the job entails helping to design and implement school-wide programs that promote racial, gender, and socioeconomic equity to ensure an inclusive environment for all students, just not the Jews, right? Just not the Jews. The lawsuit alleges that Seattle Public Schools failed in its duty to protect students from foreseeable harassment and failed to adequately train staff to respond to anti-Semitic bullying. This is not new. This is what, the second, third lawsuit against Seattle Public Schools about this? Second one against Nathan Hale in particular. And the principal of the school, who did nothing, was given the Teacher of the Year award. Then he was transferred, took a job with the Bellevue School District and was actually supposed to be in charge of a listening session on anti-Semitism in that district until parents freaked out and said the guy from that school is now running the listening sessions at this school? Are you kidding us? That's insane. That's absolutely insane. Seattle Public Schools says DEI for everybody, not you Jews, not you Asians. For everybody else, though. For everybody else. I guess it's diversity, equity, and inclusion, depending on what your skin tone looks like. How many cases are there like this? And by the way, I've said this many, many times. Unfortunately, some of these districts don't change until they're actually sued. Some of these districts isn't dealt with till they're actually sued. So unfortunately, they're not going to learn their lesson until it's dealt with. Nathan Hale High School dismissed the first one as nothing. That case is still proceeding. Now we'll see what happens with this one. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, we'll be diving into the feds coming after Washington State. It looks like the cavalry is finally coming to deal with the illegal immigration problem. We'll give you all details when we come back. You'll listen to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just want to remind you that over on our website, we have a contest to win count them 4 tickets to the Bremerton Air Show, my friends. That's right, the Bremerton Air Show on July 11th and 12th. But you can only enter over at KVI.com. While you're there, check out some of our new exclusive content. That's right. We put up content there before it goes on air the next day so you can see stories before we even do them on the show. According to the Post Millennial, the Department of Justice has notified several sanctuary states that intends to take legal action against their newly adopted policies prohibiting federal law enforcement agencies from obtaining undercover license plates to obstruct immigration and customs enforcement operations. According to the DOJ, states' discriminatory policies put the safety of federal officers at risk and are also unconstitutional. Here's looking at you, Washington. The targeted states include Washington, Oregon, Maine, and Massachusetts, all of which are Democrat-run. Quote, sanctuary policies that obstruct ICE from performing its lawful mission to protect public safety are inexcusable, said U.S. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. Removing criminal aliens from American communities is a priority, and unconstitutional actions that prevent this will be dealt with. Although the policies of the notified states are similar, the extent to which federal agencies are barred from obtaining undercover license plates varies. Washington State and Oregon will not issue undercover plates to all Department of Homeland Security agencies, including ICE and Homeland Security Investigations, whereas Massachusetts will allow HSI but not ICE to obtain them, which is just crazy. I heard a story, I saw a video, that ICE was rolling up in Subarus in our area because that way the activists didn't know it was them. They weren't in the giant Chevys. I thought that was pretty funny. The Department of Justice claims such policies violate the Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution. So, yeah, this is going to be fun how this shakes out. What if your elected official is actually working with foreign countries to circumvent the U.S. government? Do you remember when Pramila Jayapal said this last week?
In January, Trump issued an executive order threatening tariffs on any country supplying fuel to Cuba. This was this January, just a few months ago. And oil shipments from Venezuela, that's where Cuba had been getting its oil, were halted after the U.S. operations to kidnap Nicolas Maduro. Since January, only one Russian tanker of oil has made it to Cuba. In fact, it landed just a couple of days before I landed. And one tanker has enough oil basically for 10 to 14 days of Cuba's oil needs. So it's a very limited amount of time. Now, Russia has said they're going to send another tanker. I was in conversations with the ambassadors from Mexico and some other places, and I know other countries in Latin America are trying to figure out how to get oil there. But it is a crisis beyond imagination.
Okay. So she admitted that she is working with other countries to circumvent the U.S. embargo on Cuba. She also later on went to discuss how she was getting the oil from Russia. Fox News has this story up. Representative Pramila Jayapal said she has received death threats for doing my job and meeting with foreign ambassadors about Cuba's fuel shortages and U.S. sanctions. Well, why is any of that in your job purview? Why is any of that in your? Do you represent the United States government with foreign countries? Is that your job? Last time I checked, your job was to represent your constituents. Is Washington somehow in Cuba all of a sudden? Following her trip to Cuba as part of a congressional delegation in April, conservatives are now labeling the progressive lawmaker a traitor who is conspiring against the U.S. because she met with political leaders to discuss the crisis on the island. Yes, I never use the word traitor. I never do that. She really is. She's literally working against U.S. government interests. She says, I've gotten death threats as a result of this. People are calling for me to be shot. And it's just a fabrication. Is what's so wrong with so much of the work it's a fabrication? I literally just played the clip of what you said. How was that fabricated? How is that fabricated? She said, it's ridiculous to make those claims. What? She said, first of all, I had a meeting with the ambassador of a couple of countries to hear how U.S. policy toward Cuba was affecting those countries. We meet with ambassadors all the time. It's part of our job to assess what's going on the ground. What? Hang on. That's not what you said. You said you were working with countries to get oil to Cuba around U.S. sanctions. She claimed they haven't been effective. If they haven't been effective, then why are you working to circumvent them? I'm asking, just asking. She said, I've been very clear that the way to engage with Cuba is through true diplomatic negotiation. And none of the embargo that's been a long-standing embargo for over 60 years or the fuel blockade is helping us to achieve any of that. Stop. Didn't Barack Obama lift a whole bunch of this? Did that make Cuba more willing to work with the United States? I don't think so. Didn't work at all. Jayapal said she is working to address the impacts of U.S. fuel restrictions, which she slammed as cruel collective punishment. She says, quote, I'm working on legislation to address negative impacts of U.S. foreign policy toward Cuba. I'm a member of Congress. I have every right to go and travel and meet with other ambassadors. Not in Cuba, you don't. Not in Cuba, you don't. We have travel restrictions in Cuba. So she's mad that she's getting called a traitor for something she said that now she's saying she didn't really do. I said this at the time. I said there needs to be an investigation into her because the question is, what is she actually doing? Because she is so full of it all the time. The White House called her trip shameful, accused her of suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. Yep. Quote, the Democrats continue to show Americans who they really are. The America Last Party, who sip margaritas with terrorists, advocate for illegal alien criminals, and undermine the United States to aid a failed communist regime. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And yet she's saying, no, I didn't do it. This is why I said investigation. Do you believe her? I don't believe her. I don't believe her at all. Not at all. Crazy stuff. Absolutely crazy. You know what she did today? Speaking of crazy, she stole Trump's move. So there's a congressional hearing going on. Tell me if this sounds familiar to you at all.
If you're willing, would you please stand up if you're from Fairfax County? Wow, a lot of you. And please remain standing if you support immigrants and support policies that make sure that everyone feels safe in calling 911.
Okay, I've heard this somewhere before, but it was coming from the opposite perspective.
If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens.
Yeah, it's Timu President Trump over there. What did she do this for? She's saying that if we persecute illegal aliens, they won't want to talk to 911. They won't want to talk to police anymore. They won't want to be witnesses to crimes. How many of them are witnesses to crimes? I'm kind of wondering about that, Pramila. Why are they witnesses to crimes? What are they close by that they're witnessing the crimes? I have these questions. But yet she stole a page out of Trump's playbook. I've seen this move somewhere before. The exact same thing. Up next, my friend, something I haven't seen before is conservatives having a protest outside the New York Times. They're there right now. Why are they doing this? And could this be the end of the New York Times? May they have pressed too far? We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, if you listen to this show, odds are you probably hate the New York Times. But you probably also have a subscription to the New York Times because you really like that crossword puzzle or you like Wordle or something. And you need to cancel your subscription to the New York Times right now because there is a massive protest happening at the New York Times today. And I love that it's happening after work because people on our side of the aisle actually have jobs. Joining us now to explain why we are boycotting the New York Times is Jane Zirkle from the Lawfare Project. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure. Now, why don't we start from scratch? My audience, we're out in Seattle. They may not know everything about what's going on, especially as it pertains to the Middle East. Why are we mad at the New York Times?
Sure. So, as many may have seen, there was recently a report released, the October 7th sexual assault report. It revealed horrible atrocities, more than we knew had even existed on October 7th. There were grenades used in instances of sexual assault. I mean, just women and men completely brutalized, instances of gang rape, utterly horrific things. And just hours before, the New York Times decided it would be appropriate to publish a piece talking about Israeli sexual assault against Palestinians and how the Israeli government is supposedly using sexual assault as policy in how they treat Palestinians. It was complete Hamas propaganda, just utter lies. I mean, the whole thing has been dissected and exposed for being nothing more than just more terrorist propaganda. And again, more denialism of the events of October 7th, which has unfortunately been a pattern with the New York Times.
Now, let's go through some of the finer details of this hit piece on Israel, which is Nicholas Kristof is the guy who wanted to run for governor of Oregon, though he lived in New York. And he pretended he lived in Oregon so he could run for governor of Oregon and was eventually shot down for that. That is the tip of the iceberg of lies this guy has told. So now Nicholas Kristof basically used Hamas sources as his sources, manufactured things out of thin air, and then my absolute favorite one is he claimed dogs were used in all this with no proof whatsoever, and everybody's shredding him online for this. And now, as I understand it, Bibi Netanyahu announced that Israel might actually be suing the New York Times this morning.
Yes, I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see what the legal pathway forward is. I definitely think that, I'm not a lawyer myself, but I do hope that Israel demands accountability for that. And that is really what we're doing tonight outside the New York Times. We're showing up. We're expecting to have a crowd of several hundred people gather outside the New York Times headquarters in New York City to protest this article because not only did they put this out, they doubled down on it, Ari. They said that Nicholas Kristof is this renowned journalist and expert in his field. But listen, I'll tell you that this article could have come at any time. And I think there's a much broader issue here. This isn't just about Israel and the Jews. It's about how the New York Times is the enemy of the American people. I mean, over the past decade, we have seen the New York Times become the paper of record for the progressive cause. It is progressive PR. And now that we're seeing these progressive, youth merge with these radical Islamists, we're seeing it all over the streets of New York City, these pro-Hamas mobs, these two ideologies are becoming one. It's no more just the climate change or the BLM protests. It's literal Sharia supremacy in the streets of the USA. And now the New York Times is doing PR for that cause because the radical Islamic cause is the new progressive ultra leftist ideology.
We're talking with Jane Zirkle from the Lawfare Project about this protest happening outside the New York Times. Now, something else I find interesting about this is protesters who have targeted the New York Times for being pro-Israel. We all laughed at that because they're really, really not. They stormed the lobby. You guys aren't going to do that kind of stuff. But those people also don't usually subscribe to the New York Times. They don't read the New York Times. On the other hand, I know a lot of people who hate the New York Times and still subscribe to it every single day. I reached out for comments on the New York Times because they actually released their quarterly report not too long ago. It shows how many subscribers they have. So I'm kind of waiting for next quarter's report to find out how many subscribers they have. At the end of the day, what do you guys want? Do you want a retraction? Do you want an apology? Do you want them to shut down? What's the protest trying to accomplish?
So we are demanding retraction, and we're also demanding better journalism. There shouldn't be Hamas sources used in articles in a massive news source. And the more you dive into this article, the more ridiculous it gets. I mean, the Human Rights Monitor that they use to cite this crazy Israeli dog rape claim, the leadership has links to Hamas. This was nothing more than a Hamas propaganda piece. So we need better trained journalists who are actually interested in producing the truth and covering the truth rather than producing this endless funnel of fake news and propaganda.
So, Jane, just before we let you go, there's a little insider baseball behind all this that a lot of people don't know that I'm sure you're privy to at the Lawfare Project. So, what happened was the story about all the sexual violence against the October 7th victims and the hostages was given to the media but embargoed. And that means you can't print it till a certain day. We're going to give it to you early because it's a lot to digest and we want to make sure you get the story right. And according to the people who released it, it was given to the New York Times. So them releasing a story like this in 24 hours before the embargo was lifted shows they were trying to distract from this. And I checked, the New York Times still hasn't published about the report itself of all the sexual violence on October 7th, but they published this Hamas propaganda piece. Is that how you read it?
It's more October 7th denialism. They do not want to allow the victims of October 7th to be victims. It is utterly disgraceful. This is the United States of America. We should be standing with the people of Israel. We should be standing with the Jewish people. But again, this is not just an isolated incident of anti-Semitism. There is a long history of the New York Times and October 7th denialism, and there is a long history of the New York Times being against the American people and printing fake news about the American people, particularly President Trump and his supporters. We are living in a time where there is an all-time high distrust of mainstream media in this country, and this is just another example of why that is the case.
Jane, before we let you go, tell us a little bit about the Lawfare Project and the work that you guys do, because this is the first time I've heard about you guys doing a protest. That's not usually what you guys do. What's your normal day to day?
Sure. So the Lawfare Project is a Jewish civil rights organization. And what we do is we provide pro bono legal assistance to victims of terrorism and anti Semitic discrimination. And I want to be very clear when I say victims of terrorism, because if you are a victim of a pro Hamas mob, harassing Jews like we saw the other night in Brooklyn, New York, that was more of a pogrom. And so in that case, I would say you are more so a victim of terrorism than just, anti-Semitic violence. But, nonetheless, the End Jew Hatred movement is the activism arm of the Lawfare Project. And so the End Jew Hatred movement is putting on this protest tonight outside the New York Times. And we have a lot of other protests planned around New York City to combat this radical Sharia supremacy and Zoran Mandami, who is ushering this in.
And to my local friends, if you remember 3 weeks ago where we had that insane targeting of the Stand With Us event in downtown Seattle, remember that nobody has been charged for that yet. And I know a lot of people who were assaulted. So if you may need some legal help, I know just the guys you should be talking to. Jane Zirkle from the Lawfare Project and End Jew Hatred. Thank you so much for being with us today. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, we have a contest going on at KVI.com right now for your chance to win 4 tickets to the Bremerton Air Show. That's right, my friends. You go on over to KVI.com right now, you give us a little bit of your information, and you can win 4 tickets to the Bremerton Air Show on July 11th and 12th. And we will be out there on the 12th, so you get to hang out with us. I'll be there, Mr. KVI will be there, and we will also have some goodies and freebies for you. So it'll be lots of fun stuff out there at the Bremerton Air Show. The redistricting wars, you can argue over who started it, and I can make the case either way, as a matter of fact. But there's something that's going on here that every leftist outlet in town is trying to paint it as Republicans trying to redistrict Washington. No, that's not what it was at all. Remember last year, the Democrats were screwing around with redistricting. They didn't like Senator Nikki Torres. Why didn't they like Senator Nikki Torres, who's a Republican? Take a guess? Anybody? Oh, because she's a Hispanic Republican, and the district kept voting for her, so they wanted to change the whole maps, and that's what they've done. That's what they've done. But now what you've got going on is you had Republicans who've been fighting this whole time to put the maps back, and now a federal judge is considering this. So, according to the Center Square, a federal judge is considering whether to toss out Washington's redrawn legislative district maps, a decision that could impact several state lawmakers and many more candidates for office ahead of this year's elections. In a case out of Louisiana, the U.S. Supreme Court last month limited the scope of the Voting Rights Act, constraining the use of race as a factor when drawing congressional maps. The Democrats literally said they wanted more Hispanic representation because they didn't like that people were voting for the Hispanic state senator who's a Republican. Since that ruling, Washington is among several states scrambling to potentially redraw district maps that have been gerrymandered in recent years. In Washington, the legal fight centers on U.S. District Court Judge Robert Lasnik's ruling in 2024 to redraw 13 districts with the goal of strengthening the political voice of Hispanic voters in the Yakima Valley. When Lasnik redrew those maps, it affected much more than Yakima Valley. The new map shifted more than 300,000 people on both sides of the state. Now, challengers want those maps tossed, arguing they no longer survive constitutional scrutiny after the U.S. Supreme Court's April 29th ruling. So, Jose Trevino and State Representative Alex Ibarra, Republican from Quincy, filed a motion last week asking Judge Lasnik to restore the lines drawn by Washington's Redistricting Commission, not redrawn maps in 2024 by the Democrats. Steve Hobbs is cautioning Lasnik not to intervene. Quote, this court should not take any action that would affect the use of the existing legislative district maps for 2026 elections. These maps are currently in use. Election officials and hundreds of candidates for Washington state legislature have relied on those existing legislative districts. To change them now on the eve of a primary election would make it exceedingly difficult, if not impossible, to successfully, hold the state's primary election, and would also imperil the general election. Oh no, you guys have to reprint your ballots. Oh no, you have to reprint some stuff and send them to different, oh no. Is this all computerized these days? Can't you fix this real quick? Is it just a replace this with that on Excel? Senate Republican Nikki Torres from the 15th District disagrees and hopes Lasnik will restore the old maps. She says, I was redistricted out, and this has all had a huge impact on my district. Now we're going to wait and see what happens for us here in Washington state and see if they're going to go back and follow with the Louisiana case. Every 10 years, that's what it's really supposed to be, said Torres, who lost a legal challenge over the redrawn maps. So they should be drawn based off census data. But unfortunately, that was not the case here in Washington state, and this happened before. It happened even in Texas and California, and that's all people were aware of. People were not even hearing about what was happening in Washington. She rejects Hobbs' suggestion that going back to the old district maps at this point would create chaos. Quote, there would still be enough time for the Secretary of State to make the changes and mail out the ballots by July 16th in time for the primary. The primary does not have to be pushed back, she said to the Center Square. Essentially, if the ruling is made before the end of the month, it really shouldn't be that difficult for the Secretary of State to revert to the maps. I got to reach out to Senator Nikki Torres. I want to talk to her about this. I want to interview her about this. Washington State GOP Chair Jim Walsh told the Center Square there could be a ruling from the judge any day, suggesting that Hobbs and the Attorney General Nick Brown are just whining that going back to the old maps would cause chaos. Trevino and Ibarra have also petitioned the U.S. Supreme Court to review the constitutionality of Lasnik's maps. A response is due on June 2nd. You still have 6 weeks to fix things. Yeah, it shouldn't be that hard, guys. 6 weeks to do it. It's printing. It's easy printing. This should not be a big deal. What do you guys think? Should we go back to the old maps? I think we should. I think the Democrats were trying to gerrymander, and I think they were trying to get rid of a Hispanic Republican. In fact, several Hispanic Republicans. Now, what I find funny about this is a couple days ago, we didn't do the story at the time because it was clickbait a couple days ago, but a couple days ago, the Washington State Standard was going around looking for content. And even though the redistricting battles are not happening here in Washington and can't happen until the next census, you had Jerry Cornfield or whoever wrote this thing for the Washington State Standard. Who did write this thing? Aspen Ford went around asking Shasti Conrad from the Democrats what she thought about this. She suggested to the New York Times last week that if her party secures a legislative supermajority, lawmakers may undo the redistricting commission. Hang on. A change that would require voter approval. In an interview with the Standard this week, Conrad clarified that she doesn't want to end Washington's redistricting commission. She blamed Republicans for igniting the current redistricting war. Hang on. Before Greg Abbott did anything he did, let's go back to 2024. That's before Greg Abbott did anything. Who was redistricting in Washington State? It wasn't Greg Abbott. It was the Democrats because they didn't like Representative Ibarra and they didn't like Nikki Torres. And they wanted to get rid of both of them. They didn't like that you had Hispanic Republicans. They didn't like that at all. She said, I'm not pushing for us to undo independent redistricting system, but there's a national discussion about what is happening, how to meet the moment that the Republican-controlled Supreme Court just gutted the voting rights. Oh, we're back to this again? That's about racism? No, it's because specifically they said you can't do these things based on race. It is racist. It is discriminatory. You cannot do that. But I'll take you back to her earlier comments. She wants the supermajority in the Washington State Legislature. She wants that supermajority. And I got to tell you, Republicans are already fighting with one hand tied behind their back. How do I know? Some of the districts don't even have Republican challengers. What killed me is we put out the call for people who want to run for office, and we got a lot of people stepping up. And unfortunately, they were in districts which were already covered. I didn't get the people for some of the districts I wanted to, but that's okay. There's always another election. There's always another election. So you know who doesn't have a challenger this cycle? Sean Scott, the communist from Seattle, doesn't have a challenger this cycle. He gets to just sit back and be a communist. Because who from Seattle would challenge the communist when we just elected a communist mayor? It's okay, guys. We got lots of other races. We got lots of other time. We got ones we're going to win. We'll make sure to keep you in the loop on all that. Lots more to discuss, my friends. When we come back, you have Turd Ferguson saying Seattle's a world-class city. Really? I don't think so. Give you all details up next. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the KVI studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Rand Paul gets to call out that he was right and Anthony Fauci was wrong about everything, and it's absolutely delicious to watch. But before we get to any of that, we are finally seeing some Democrats call out Katie Wilson, call out socialism, call out what's happening to their party. Former Washington Governor Christine Gregoire, well, we all know what she does now, right? Christine Gregoire is now calling out Democrats who are leading our state for the disaster they're causing to our business community. Give a listen.
Do you think majority leaders understand, do you think our legislature understands the impact of the policy environment as it relates to the economy?
No. I really don't. As evidenced by, you mentioned the estate tax. I argued to some folks about the estate tax. We were the highest in the country, tied with Hawaii at 20%. We went to 35. We're not just the highest. We're beyond the highest. And I said, now, you understand the consequences of this. Can I see your fiscal note? Because I'd like to help it. Because here's what you can expect. Those people are not homeless. They will not pay. They're leaving. When they leave, they stop paying cap gains. When they leave, they stop giving significantly to philanthropy, which would otherwise be necessary by government. So do you understand, do you see the consequences of what you're doing? And the answer is no. I left office with a budget of $33 billion, and the budget today is $80 billion. I think that's a little bit too much of a growth. And yet, how we find ourselves at the end of every legislative session now is in the hole and projected to be in the hole. I would suggest to you, we don't really have an income problem. We have a spending problem. And we're answering... And we're answering it by stacking one more tax, one more rule, one more regulation. And the one thing that the business community doesn't need is that lack of predictability. How many people in either of the Democratic caucuses have come from a business past? Okay? So if you haven't come from it, you don't know it, you don't understand it, and therefore, to me, we all collectively, and Chris and I have talked a lot about this, have to educate from the outside in. We have to explain things like sales tax on services you thought was a nice attack on big business. And here are the small businesses that have been tremendously adversely impacted, as well as the customers.
She sounds like a Republican. Isn't that everything we've been saying this whole time? She used to be governor of Washington State. And don't get me wrong, she was not a good governor. She was not. She contributed to this mess. But she knew you can only push businesses so far before they say, we are out of here. She knew that. They taxed. They spent dumb things. They spent money on very stupid things. But she talked about how the budget has grown exponentially. She talked about the taxing. She said she offered to help them with their finances to say, okay, you need to make up the money. Here's what we'll make up the money. You can tax a little here, tax a little there. But if you do these other taxes, you're going to chase people out of the state. And look what's happening. Look at what's happening. She made these comments at the Association of Washington Business 2026 Spring Summit, and she's talking to business and saying, I know you're mad, I know you want to leave, and this is what's going on. Thanks to our friend Brandy Cruz for finding this clip. Because this is insane. This is absolutely insane. Christine Gregoire is calling it out. It used to be Democrats and Republicans had a lot more in common. It used to be we agreed on national defense, we agree on American pride, and at some point, the Democrats completely jumped the shark, where it's just we spend because we have to spend. They don't even know what they're spending the money on. They don't even care that they're spending the money likely on millions, if not billions of dollars of fraud here in Washington State. They don't even care. Christine Gregoire sounds like a Republican in that clip. The lady who stole that election way back when. You all remember that, right? Dino Rossi. We all remember this. She sounds like a Republican because the Democrats have gone so far off the deep end. So far off the deep end. It's crazy. Everybody can see it. And what's going to happen next time around in the legislature? If we don't win a few more seats this time in the Washington State legislature, you know what's going to happen? Everything we stop this time is going to come back with a vengeance. First, they'll start with redistricting, claiming it's about Trump. That's what they'll claim. And then taxing, claiming it's all Trump's fault that we have these economic problems, that it's Trump's fault that Starbucks is moving. That's Trump's fault that all this wealth is leaving the state, even though wealth isn't leaving the state. Just watch the excuses, all the excuses they're going to come up with. You know what it really is? It's the fact that the Democrats have gone so crazy, they're electing little Mamdanis everywhere. In fact, House Speaker Mike Johnson called this out just the other day.
The way I describe it in summary is that they're little mini Mamdanis popping up all around the country, okay? And they're openly avowed socialist, Marxist ideology. This is something that we have never seen before in American history. The Tea Party reset in the Republican Party was about fiscal responsibility. This is about moving away from a constitutional republic to a communist utopian ideology. And that's a dangerous thing for the future of the country. The problem we have is the insurgent left, the far left, has all the energy and excitement and the money in the Democratic Party. This is not our father's Democratic Party anymore. They're going far, far left, and no one's there to stop it. And that's a dangerous thing.
Look at Katie Wilson. Katie Wilson is a product of those hippie parents from the 1960s that went on to become college professors and push this communist radical agenda. She's a perfect example of this. You want to hear a little crazy story? My wife works for a different news outlet. And in working with the news outlet, she does national news. And she's been covering New York a ton because there's been a lot going on in New York the past couple of weeks. She works for a Jewish outlet. And especially with the Jewish community, there's been a lot going on. Do you know that Mamdani's office gets back to her all the time? She has a request for comment, Mamdani's office gets back to her. By the way, when I have a request for comment, Mamdani's office gets back to me. You know whose office doesn't get back to me? Or her, by the way, Katie Wilson. Katie Wilson's office doesn't get back to me or her. For those of you thinking, oh, it's just, they don't know she's married to me. They don't know that because they don't get back to a lot of people. When you blow off Chris Daniels, you're not getting back to anybody. My wife and I were discussing this today, is that around here, they will freeze you out because they don't want to own up to their mistakes. Mamdani and crew, they're proud of their insanity. They are proud of it. They tout it from the rooftops. They're excited about it. Katie Wilson, it's almost like the kid who's trying to get away with something, who doesn't want to get in trouble. There's a report from the Seattle Times, just I saw during the break, that apparently there's some shakeup of staff at Katie Wilson's office. Guys, that ain't going to fix your problem. That ain't going to fix the massive forehead problem you guys have in charge over there. It's not going to solve anything. The problem is your ideology. The problem is your programs. The problem is your policies. You think they're tired of Katie Wilson being a national joke? Yeah, replacing your staff isn't going to fix that. Not going to fix that at all. There were shakeups in the Biden administration. That didn't fix anything because the problems are the policies. The problems are these policies are chasing out businesses. So I'm driving home yesterday, and I make that turn onto Denny Way, which I try to avoid Denny Way. It was bad before. They started putting in the bike lanes. The bus lanes. Wasn't that quick work? She just announces these a week or two ago, and already they're doing it. So she can have her own bus lane, her own bus go so much faster, even though the streets on either side of Denny have bus lanes already. But for her bus, she wants those bus lanes ready to go.
I'm pretty sure they were working on that before that she announced it too. Because I was up there, and then you played that piece of audio where she's like dismissing Chris Daniels and all that stuff. Who's like, that's the first time I've ever seen a reporter in traffic reporting or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I had come up that way. I was going up to Capitol Hill for something. I can't remember what. And I was like, wow, this really sucks because it makes you get all the way over. And then while you're over there, you're waiting. Who's going to be an Ari Hoffman? Who's going to come up on my right and take that lane and then try to cut in and get in front of me? And then I won't make this light.
Well, here's the crazier thing. So the bus lanes where I drive, because you go up towards I-5, right?
That's where I was going, yeah.
I'm going a different part of it. I'm going to turn onto 5th.
Got
or
it,
to turn
to get
onto
on
2nd.
to get on the freeway.
But now the bus lane's there. I can't go where I'm turning, so now you've shoved everybody who's turning and everybody into the one lane up the middle. So now you have a new problem. The reason I never went in that lane before is because people are trying to make a left in that lane on streets where you have lights, and they would back up the traffic in the left lane. So now, whether you're making a right and you would have gotten out of the way real fast, or you're making a left, you are now stuck in the left lane if you follow the rules. So now she has made it infinitely worse. And here's something else. Normally what would happen was a bus would go in the right lane because that's where the buses go. And you saw a bus far ahead, so you'd swerve into the left and then go back to the right once you pass. You can't do that no more. So now everything is backing up on Denny Way because of this stupidity. Whether you're going one direction, whether you're going the other direction, include the people who need to turn right in that bus lane. And here's something else. You know how I know they've been working on this for a while and I just didn't realize it? Yesterday, when I saw the lane was there, I saw those bus signals. Those suckers didn't go in overnight. I must have missed, because they probably did during the day. I leave at 6:30, 7 o'clock, whatever time it is, I'm going home. Those signals were ready to go yesterday. Those things take testing. Those things take longer. You got to rewire all the electrical. They must have been working on this for a long, long time. They just put down the striping. So what happens is Katie Wilson comes along. She probably started this in January and goes, look what I did. Look what I'm announcing today, probably before somebody found out about it. And the last time they did something like this in my neighborhood, I filed a public disclosure request. And I said, can I have all the studies you did to show what this is going to do to emergency response, to traffic? How's it going to affect ambulances and cop cars that need to get places? Because you got to take that into account when you do this stuff. And they said no responsive records on the public disclosure request. You didn't do the study, or you destroyed the study? I don't think they even do the studies anymore. They just do what they want to do, and they screw all of us. This is what they're spending the money on. Lanes to make traffic worse so that you'll want to take the bus. Hey, Katie Wilson, nothing you do is going to make me want to take Metro. Nothing at all. You know why? Because I can't bring my gun on Metro anymore to defend myself against the psychopaths. Because I don't want to sit on the seats on Metro. Because I've seen what happens to those seats.
So I have been, the last couple of days, I've been taking the bus and the light rail in. Because I got the cars in the shop getting some stuff done.
Yes.
So I've been taking it, and it's fine. It's doing what it's doing. I haven't seen too many kooky stuff going on or anything like that. I haven't sat in excrement of any sort that I'm aware of.
That happened to one of our coworkers, by the way.
Sure did.
Yeah, she had to go home and change.
Check those seats before you sit down.
Oh, gross.
But nothing's been too kooky or crazy. Haven't seen anything. But at the end of the day, would I prefer doing that every day over my car? No.
Because
if I'm being honest, no.
Because here's something else. Take New York City for a minute. In New York City, when you take mass transit, it's faster to take the subway. Infinitely faster, and it's convenient because you built the city around it. New York, Boston, Chicago. You built the city around the transit. Los Angeles, Seattle, when you try to cram in the transit, it never works right. So if I want to take mass transit here, it would take me longer than driving. And now I'm like, why would I even bother doing that?
Well, you know what's funny is with this construction that they're doing northbound on I-5, which has the express lanes going north constantly now.
Yes.
Which I used to take the express lanes in, going south, coming into the city, which you can't do now.
Right. Which is intentional, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
I get why they're doing it, to relieve whatever. But my commute has doubled ever since. And of course, this is going to end, I guess, in August or something. Something like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of either a push or it almost was quicker taking light rail. I took light rail from Northgate, then down to Westlake. Then you got to get on the monorail, your favorite, to go to the Seattle Center. And then I walked from the Seattle Center to here. And I think that was maybe quicker or a push now with the nonsense going on with I-5.
Well, let's do something like this, okay? Because I don't know about you, Kevin. You've been working here a really long time. This was like the job you had when you were much, much younger. The jobs I had when I was much, much younger, bartender, food delivery, caterer, and I kept really goofy hours. So let's say somebody who works in one of the bars in Seattle Center, around the Seattle Center area, and they have to go home at 2 o'clock in the morning. Oh, no monorail. Can't take the monorail to the light rail.
Oh, I'll go further on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't take the light rail at 2.
There you go.
It shuts down at 1.
And you can't take the light rail now. So this mass transit that's for the common folk, for the workers, what do they have to take in this world-class city, as Bob Ferguson calls it? They have to drive. And now you've made life harder on them because it's more expensive, there's less parking, the gas taxes, the everything else. But none of these people have ever had jobs like that, ever. I guarantee it. Katie Wilson, you think she ever worked in this? Look, even AOC can say she was a bartender. Even AOC. I don't know what kind of bartender she was, but fine. But I know from working those jobs, if I didn't have mass transit in New York, I would have been screwed. Cab fares, keeping a car in New York. Mass transit actually made sense in New York City. It actually did. Here, Now, there are days like the time there was a snowstorm and Mike could get here and I couldn't.
Same.
That's
Same with me.
one time where I'm like, well, maybe I should have taken mass transit, but I couldn't get to the station.
But this is the long-going debate whether, and it's been a part of since I've worked at this radio cluster, is do you give up on this? You know, I know they're shoehorning it, they're fitting it into a city that didn't have it from the start, or wasn't equipped for it.
Yeah.
And again, what feelings on the company that's doing this, Sound Transit, and the way they're going about it, and if there's better ways of doing it, yeah, that's debated. But what do we do? Because it does come in handy. Like today and yesterday for me, it did come in handy.
So here's an example, okay? And here's what I don't understand. I love transit. I love the idea of trains. When I was a kid, loved the trains, loved riding the train, loved everything about them. I took trains every day of high school and college, didn't use a car most of my life in high school and college because it was just easier to do this. Plus, it was too expensive to have the car. I know from firsthand experience how great transit could be. But they did it so stupidly. So, for example, we don't have any money. You just made everything free for the World Cup. They announced that everything's free when you have 1 million extra people coming here.
No, I understand all of this, but here we are. We're in the middle of it now.
I'm with you. So now, here's the stuff they're doing on top of this. They are so desperate to get you out of their cars that what they're doing is they're installing speed bumps everywhere. Speed bumps everywhere. And now what do? You go, well, that street doesn't have the speed bumps. I don't care. That's a residential street. I'm going down that street because it don't have the speed bumps. And I'm going to drive like a bat out of hell because I know that I have to beat the cyclists here. I have to beat this there. And if I don't do this on this exact time, I ain't getting around it. So now people are driving like maniacs through residential neighborhoods, yours truly included. And they wonder why more people are getting hit by cars. They wonder why more people are getting into accidents. And they wonder why how did this happen? I don't know. So it's a matter of, I'm not disagreeing with you that we need transit. I'm not saying we shouldn't have bus lanes. But the common sense behind it makes no sense because they've taken out car lanes for bicycles, which are only used 2 months out of the year max, and the buses, and the this, and the that. It was done by morons who had an agenda rather than, how can we practically do this? There was this initiative years ago out of Spokane called Smart City. I don't know if they're still in business or not. I haven't looked. But what they did is they used computers, they used AI to figure out what's the most efficient 4 cars, 4 buses, 4 bicycles. Here's one for you, South Seattle friends. They're now talking about closing Lake Washington Boulevard for 3 days every weekend for the summer. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So Friday, one of your biggest travel days, you're now closing a major thing after you did road diets on Rainier Avenue and all sorts of stuff. You know what you could have done for a fraction of the price? I kid you not, I did the math on it. You could have built a boardwalk for all the cyclists along Lake Washington, and it would have been a tourist attraction, and people would have come to see it. And you could have had shops on there that you leased out to people who sell ice cream and do skee ball or whatever else it is that you put on Lake Washington Boulevard. Think of how great that would have been for Seafair. You bring down all the people. You have all the stuff out there for Seafair. But instead, they spent $11 million a mile. $11 million a mile on the stupid bike lanes, which nobody uses. And now you want to close Lake Washington Boulevard for the summer? This is a war on cars. That's what it is. It's a war on cars and trying to make things less efficient. Speaking of wars, by the way, how about the war for the truth? How about the war for common sense? Up next, my friends, Dr. Anthony Fauci was a hot topic on Capitol Hill yesterday because it turns out he was trying to influence the CIA about the Wuhan lab leaks. We'll give you all the craziness when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder about the contest we're running over at KVI.com. Your chance to win four tickets to the Bremerton Air Show on July 11th and 12th. Head on over there to KVI.com right now for your chance to win. Little update for you, by the way, and I got to give kudos to one of our listeners. This is from Gemma. Gemma sent this over to me. She was listening earlier in the show. She saw my social media posts. You know how we talked about Joshua Kowalski? He's the homeless 46-time prolific offender who allegedly raped a 15-year-old girl in the woods in Seattle. And a judge said to the media, you can't show his face. Well, you know, it's kind of entertaining. She found his Facebook page and his face is right there on it. And she sent it on over to me. So as soon as the show's over today, we'll be posting that on social media. Share it far and wide because some Seattle area judge didn't want you to do that. Just like Anthony Fauci didn't want you to know the truth about COVID. So We had the CIA whistleblower testifying on Capitol Hill yesterday about Dr. Fauci's role in the COVID cover-up of the Wuhan lab leak. Give a listen.
Public health policy would have been very different had the American public been made aware that a virus from a lab in China was going to serve as the foundation for an emergency use authorization mRNA products being mandated by the former administration. Dr. Fauci's role in the cover-up was intentional. Dr. Fauci influenced the analytical process and findings by leveraging his position to ensure the IC consulted with a conflicted list of curated subject matter experts, public health officials, and scientists. This included some of the authors of the paper, The Proximal Origin of SARS-CoV-2, and other public health experts who have been in his orbit for the last 20 plus years.
So he didn't like that people knew it was coming from a lab, so he came up with the bat nonsense? Came up with the bat nonsense. Remember how many times this guy lied about this? You remember all the times he lied about this? Who called him out every single time? Rand Paul. I've got disagreements with Rand Paul on policy. I've got disagreements with Rand Paul on a lot of things, but he was phenomenal, like nobody else during COVID, calling out this nonsense, especially because he's a doctor. And he would call out Fauci. I love the way he would always say, Dr. Fauci. He would just call him out. He had that inflection. I can't do a Rand Paul impression, but he had a way of talking to him like, you idiot. Just the way he would say his name. Here's what Rand Paul said yesterday in response to all this.
You know, people think, well, gosh, was there a conspiracy where all these evil people had their hands together and they were conspiring to do something bad? And I think George Carlin put it the best. He said it isn't required that you come up with a conspiracy where interests converge. And I think the interest is we funded a lot of dangerous research. Accidents have happened. This was an accident. In all likelihood, this was an accident. Even the Chinese probably didn't want this to happen in Wuhan. It was an accident. But the interest is that if you funded that research for 10 years, wouldn't I logically want to ask you why? You know, why you did this funding. And so there are dozens of people throughout government who did cover this up, maybe hundreds. They don't even know each other necessarily, but they had a hand in funding this research through the years. They've been in favor of it. It's been a big debate. For 20 some odd years, there's been a huge debate, maybe longer. People think this is the first virus that got out. One of the most, it's not as much reported, but one of the most famous viruses that got out was the Russian flu of 1977. And we're not sure it came from Russia or where it came from. But the interesting thing is nobody over 24 got the flu. Zero, not one person. Why? Because the Russian flu of 1977 had the exact same RNA structure as a flu in 1953 that had been kept in a lab somewhere. How do you get an identical virus 30 years later? Viruses mutate every couple of months like COVID has. There is no way to have an identical virus unless you got it from a lab. So proof positive that the 1977 flu actually came out of a lab. An accident, once again, an accident. There's a woman who's written about this. I think her last name is Young. She says that over a period of years, like 1,500 major accidents that she's cataloged. So it's not only about malfeasance, it's about safety of these labs. In fact, some people were finally convinced that this came from Wuhan because it was a BSL-2 instead of a BSL-4 for much of the time, that it didn't have enough safety precautions. But even the safest one, the 4, still has accidents. So maybe some of these experiments, we ought to reconsider whether we do them.
I like that he actually approached that from the scientific thing. It'd be the easiest thing in the world for him to take a victory lap and dunk on that, which he kind of did. But he said from a scientific perspective, why are we funding this insanity? It happened before. It'll likely happen again. Why are we funding this? Senator Moody wasn't as polite.
And then you had Dr. Fauci, who came out and contradicted himself constantly. At one point, he even admitted later, he told people shouldn't be walking around with masks on. And later he said that was because we were trying to control the supply for healthcare professionals. It wasn't based on any science. But then later he told everyone to wear masks repeatedly. The 6-foot rule seemed to have been just crafted out of thin air with no basis in science whatsoever. In fact, he said that rule sort of just appeared when he testified, and that guidance on the shutdown of schools and small businesses was arbitrary and not based on any science. So I just want to make sure the American people hear that. You had a government who's supposed to be limited and stay out of people's lives, coming in and offering guidance. Many times it was done under mandates.
Mandates. Remember all that? Remember that insanity? You want to be triggered, by the way? Go see the movie Dumb Money about the GameStop stock, by the way. They got COVID right in that movie, and all the stupidity is in there for everybody to see. Now, speaking of pure evil stupidity, Jim Brunner in the Seattle Times doxed some of our friends, gave out a lot of their information, and now activists are targeting an event this weekend. When we come back, one of them is going to be joining us to tell us what she's been dealing with since the Seattle Times decided to do this to push a radical political agenda for the Democrats. Tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. If there is violence on Saturday targeting a political event in Washington, one that will make the news most likely, you can fully blame the Seattle Times and the Democrat Party. Normally, there's not such a clear line. Today, there is a very, very clear line of what happened. The Seattle Times decided to do a hit piece on our friend Katie Faust from Them Before Us. They do this hit piece on her. They bring in our friend Brandy Cruz. They bring in our friend Brian Haywood. They bring in Let's Go Washington, just in order to demonize all of them because they don't want the initiatives passed that are going to repeal the income tax, that are going to keep boys out of girls' sports, and they're going to guarantee parental rights. The Seattle Times, unknowing stooges or knowing participants, ran this hit piece. And now we have far-left radicals targeting the event. Joining us now, founder of Them Before Us and the spokesperson for the Greater Than campaign, Katie Faust. Thanks for being with us today.
Nice to chat with you again, Ari.
You know, I got to say, I felt a little left out that they didn't come gunning for me. I mean, after all, I got a chapter in your book. You and I have been friends for a couple of years now. I have a little bit of FOMO going on right now.
Well, maybe it won't be the last time. And there will be other events where you too can get doxxed so that you have to beef up security, warn your children, and make sure that anybody that is slightly associated with you does not post anything on social media so that their businesses are not targeted. You know the drill. That's kind of what I've been dealing with for the last couple of days.
All right, let's back up. Let's go back in time because I crammed a lot into that intro. So Sunday, for Mother's Day, this article comes out by Jim Brunner of the Seattle Times, which is just a hit piece on you. And let me see if I can sum it up. How dare the Christian lady hold biblical values? That is basically how I would sum it up. Would you agree with that?
How dare the Christian lady hold biblical values? Also, this is where she goes to church. This is where she lives. This is where her husband used to work. This is where he currently works. This is how much the nonprofit made. This is how much she's getting paid. This is her childhood. This is her current status of her current children. Just, all of the necessary details you need to report on an issue of great importance to people in Seattle.
Insane. So now what happens is you scroll down through your entire biography and everything anybody knows to find you wherever you go in this article in the Seattle Times. And then you get down there and it's Brandy Cruz and Brian Haywood who are speaking at an event you're at. But correct me if I'm wrong, like we've known each other a while, but I don't think you've really had much to do with either of them. Had you even met them before?
I didn't know who Brian was at all. I know who Brandy is because I have seen her around social media. My co-author Stacy actually did an article or an interview with her several years ago, so she's been on my radar. But the truth is that the Seattle Times article did get something right, which is I am much more connected to the national scene. I'm spearheading a national coalition to overturn gay marriage. They got that right too. They should be afraid because I actually do have all of conservatism speaking with one voice in the effort to take down gay marriage. So my connections are not necessarily with the Jim Walshes, or necessarily the Brandy Cruz. My connections are the Heritage Foundation, the Alliance Defending Freedom, the Family Research Council, American Family Association, the Daily Wire, the Blaze, the Federalist. Those are my connections. So I do have much more of a network at the national level because I'm coordinating a national campaign. But maybe I'll have a chance to be a little more locally known now.
Well, this was the thing that was interesting to me. I know that you're nationally known, but you don't play in the local politics. That's not your world. That's not your scene. I play in the local politics and occasionally I dabble in the national politics, but my main focus is here locally. And my first thought was, why are they going after Katie? This made no sense to me at all. So now that you've read it, now that you've seen it, now that you've dealt with the threats and everything else, what do you think the motivation here was?
Well, I don't know, but Mr. Brunner reached out to anybody and everybody that he could. Current employees, former employees, the chairman of my board. He tried to reach me by phone. He did reach me by email. And I said, no, thank you, because we knew him to be a political actor. And my chairman said, it doesn't matter what you say to him. He'll print what he wants to print. He'll distort whatever it is that you say. So starve him of oxygen. And then if he publishes slander, then we will just fact check him in real time. Interestingly, he even reached out to my husband, who has been deployed. My husband, who has not been at home for 18 of the last 24 months because he's now an active duty Navy chaplain, which he was very happy to publish to, all of the world as well. And my husband didn't have time to get back to the request because he's up at 5. He works until 9:30 and he does that 7 days a week. But then he told me later, oh yeah, that guy reached out to me too. I didn't have time to write back. And I was like, gosh, Mr. Bruner, I wonder if my husband had replied to you, would you have said, hey, thanks for leaving your family. Thanks for being deployed to protect my fundamental right to free speech. I'm planning on using them to force your wife to have increased security wherever she goes now. Would you have said that, you absolute effing beta of a reporter? I don't know. So what was the original question, Ari?
I think you answered it. I don't think I need to go back and ask that. I'm sorry for laughing. It's that awkward laughter where you can't believe how absurd the world is. I mean, I think to myself of the security that Brandy's had to have, that Brian's had to have, that now you have to have, that I've had to have. And I sometimes wonder if we should just send the bill to the Seattle Times. If we should send the bill to some of these activists who are just ginning this up so that they can get clicks or controversy or God knows what. So you have this speaking event on Saturday night. For our audience, who are going to be the friendlies who show up to something like that, what is this event that's Saturday night?
You know, it's interesting. It's the Snohomish County Republicans. And I think we've nailed this down. I think we tried to do it last year. It didn't work out time-wise. So this has been on my calendar for like 4 months. And I just recently wrote the guy, I'm like, oh yeah, hey, what do you want me to talk about? And they're like, whatever you want. I mean, it's not like they're big parts of the like coalition to overturn gay marriage. But you know what they're going to get instead? They're going to get let me show you exactly how Washington State is guilty of the very thing that I say is responsible for the commodification of children, and that is the redefinition of parentage laws. Because Jamie Peterson, Democrat darling of the state Senate of Washington, is the guy who's gay married with 4 surrogate-born sons. He is the lawyer that rewrote the Uniform Parenthood statutes, the law commission that decides how parentage is framed throughout the country. He, quote unquote, updated it in 2017 to comply with Obergefell. What do those updates include? Stripping all of our conversations, all of the names out of parentage law that have to do with mother or father, male or female. It legalized commercial surrogacy. It created new pathways for unrelated adults to acquire children without background checks. And it greenlit the payments that go directly from intended parents to genetic or birth parents to relinquish their parental rights. You know what we call that in the adoption world? We call that trafficking. So I gave a speech last September at the National Conservative Conference called How Obergefell Commodified Children. And Washington State was one of the very first states in the nation to do exactly that. But Mr. Bruner couldn't be bothered by such relevant local effects. Instead, he needed to tell people that a donor advised fund where the Green family had also donated at one time gave me money last year. Those were the details that he felt like he needed to include, not the fact that children have been commodified because of gay marriage, and Washington State is Exhibit A in that transformation.
So let me see if we get the net results of this. You, Brandy, Brian, and the Snohomish County Republicans, it's not like this was some, oh, let's go protest a drag something or anything like that. It's a political fundraiser for a county political party. So now let's see net effects. You guys all had to get massive amounts of security, but now you're going to go scorched earth on them. Now Brian's more motivated on the initiatives. Brandy's more motivated and got more subscribers. And every comment on the Seattle Times is negative. Do you think that they're regretting this, or you think they're happy now that all these activists are coming?
Yeah, hard to say, because I'll tell you, the Southern Poverty Law Center certainly grifted this way for an awful long time. Seattle Times looks like they're just following the same playbook along with all of that. I mean, like Todd Herman, our mutual friend, suggested that maybe Lambda Legal was responsible for funding this piece, because they certainly came off looking very, very good in Mr. Bruner's reporting. Of course, Mr. Bruner wanted to expose my salary and the $1 million that we raised last year, but he did not point out that Lambda Legal, they raised $58 million last year, and they've got a $250 million capital campaign going on right now. I mean, thanks for the transparency, Seattle Times. Like, wow, journalism extraordinaire. So, like, everything about this was simply a political hit. It was a targeted dog whistle against their ideological opponents. that was cloaked in journalistic language. But the point was, there they are, boys, go get them.
Yeah, and these are the ones who call themselves journalists and then deny us press passes and fund the lawsuits to deny us press passes. Katie Faust, if people want to learn more about you and the causes you represent and everything you're working on, how do they do that?
Well, I advanced some very dangerous, terrible ideas, Ari. Things like children have a mother and father, and we should not buy and sell them. So if that doesn't trigger you, you can follow my work at thembeforeus.com. You should subscribe to our Substack because I will arm you to the teeth as it relates to defending children. And if you want to get on board with our campaign to overturn gay marriage so that children are not commodified in the name of adult equality, you can go to greaterthancampaign.com and sign up. You will see that we have people in our coalition from Robert George to Dr. Albert Mueller to Josh Hammer to Ali Stuckey to Michael Knowles to Lila Rose to leaders at the Alliance, at the Heritage Foundation. We've got everybody. We've got the lawyers, we've got the policymakers, we've got the influencers, we've got the Protestants, we've got the Catholics. We've got everybody. The nascent pro-life coalition didn't have this kind of uniformity of message. So the Seattle Times actually does have reason to be afraid because it's not just me that's coming for them. It is all of conservatism that is coming for them. And we're going to tell them, don't touch the kids. And you're going to have to fight us if you want to try.
And just one reminder that we do all the time on the show here is to remind everybody that if you are paying for a subscription to the Seattle Times, you are funding the attacks on our friends and the people whose words you read, whose voices you listen to, whose advice and research you use. So the best thing you could do right now is unsubscribe from the Seattle Times. Go subscribe to Them Before Us. Go subscribe to Brandy's podcast. Go give a donation to Let's Go Washington. These are the things you can do, and you won't be funding the opposition. Katie Faust, really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much.
I'm really grateful for your voice in this space, Ari.
Very kind of you to say. We got a whole lot more to discuss. As the show continues, you're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And this story was making the rounds on the nerd websites and Facebook groups and groups that I'm in, you name it. And then it wound up in the AP, and it cracked me up. Okay, I spend a lot of time in the dorky websites, and I mean like Knight Rider, Back to the Future. One of my favorite things to do is actually look at things I can't afford on eBay. And you could buy a replica of the time machine from Back to the Future. It'll run you between $60,000 and $80,000, but you can spend the money on that. Or one of Knight Rider. In fact, one of our friends locally who owns an auto shop out in Lake City, he's actually building a Knight Rider replica, and he's even working on an AI voice for the sucker, which is even cooler. Like, you'll be able to talk to the thing. Very, very cool stuff. Well, what's funny is Knight Rider has the car kit, the black car, right? The Knight Industries 2000.
Yeah, which is a Pontiac Firebird.
It's a Trans Am or
Trans
whatever.
Am
It's a
Firebird.
They're the same car. Same
car.
Camaro in that year.
Yeah,
and
they're interchangeable.
They're all, you can change the parts out of each of them.
GM F-bodies, I think is what they're called.
Yeah, two-door coupes. That's what they'll call them, right? So what happens is the Volo Auto Museum, and if you've never been there, it's Volo, Illinois. It's north of Chicago. Is that this museum is incredible. I've been there before. I took my kids one time because I always wanted to go there. They have every car ever made. They have every movie car ever made. They have the Harrier from True Lies is at this museum. They have rides. They have stuff from Disney. They have snowmobiles. I mean, you name it. They have crazy stuff there. So they have one of the surviving Knight Rider cars. They would destroy 2 or 3 every episode. Anytime that thing jumps, they got to fix it. They got to repair it. I mean, they did their damage on those cars. But one of the surviving ones is in their collection. So it hasn't moved in years. And that's why it was kind of entertaining that they got a speeding ticket for it. Like, how do we get a speeding ticket for this thing? It hasn't gone anywhere. We got a speeding ticket in New York. This thing's in Volo, Illinois. How to get a speeding ticket? Well, somebody else has a Knight Rider replica, including the license plate, which is a California plate that says Knight. But the actual real one, which is licensed to the one at the Volo Auto Museum, because occasionally, I guess, they take it out for events and whatnot. It's got to be street legal. So it was busted doing 36 and a 25. And now the Volo Auto Museum is fighting the ticket. That's going to do it for us today. We'll be back tomorrow with more insane stories and more exciting guests. You've been listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.